is my connection with you. So obviously, if I'm a father, that's a big connection. So father cares about his children. And as such, hold on one second. As such, the father cares about his children. He wants his children to be blessed. So, because our custom is, of course, that parents bless their children every Friday night. Right? Right? Parents bless their children every Friday night. Whoop. Okay. This is good. And this is good. And this is good. So the idea of a blessing is how much the parent wants for the child to be successful. It says in the Gemara that everybody is jealous of everybody, except for two people. The only two people that you're never jealous of ever is your children and your students. You're never jealous of them. If your children excel you or exceed you, you're delighted. If your students exceed you and are better than you and greater than you and more learned than you and more observant than you, you're tickled pink. The great delight in that matter. And so clearly, the blessing comes from the heart. It's a real heartfelt blessing, right? More it says, words from the heart go into the heart. You get it? You know, someone cares about you and says a blessing to you, you take that seriously. And in so taking that seriously, the idea of the blessing here is a transference of power, transferring the mantle of leadership. And we had that originally with Abraham and Yitzchak. And we said at the time that Abraham was going to sacrifice Yitzchak, and Yitzchak was ready to sacrifice his life, all to fulfill God's will, at that moment, leadership transferred. A few years later, Abraham passes away. Abraham is elderly now, but the moment of transference of leadership was at the time when Abraham told Yitzchak, let's go to sacrifice. I'm going to sacrifice you to Hashem, and he accepted upon himself such a great sacrifice. Now Yitzchak is elderly. So if Yitzchak is elderly, who is going to? Don't feel bad. I started early. Yeah. Yitzchak is gonna sacrifice. Now give over. Yitzchak is going to give the well, you see that?
Yeah, and I have to be on time now.
That's right. Take a look. Yitzchak is not giving over the mantle of leadership to the next generation, but he's got a choice. He's got Esau and he's got Yaakov. Now we already know. I mean, we've already read the story, I guess. Maybe we already have some sort of background. We've seen the trailer. Is that the way they say in the movies?
Yeah.
We've seen the trailer, so we know that Esau's the bad guy and Yaakov's a good guy. We know that a bit. And so knowing that, it kind of keeps us a little bit out of the story, but nevertheless, it's fascinating to know how Yitzchak is going to maneuver that, because Yitzchak doesn't really know that Esau's the bad guy, because Esau is a hunter, a trapper, and we said a hunter traps, right? It lays a trap for the animal, and the animal falls right in, and he gets him. So he hunts his father, he traps his father, he lies to his father, and he tells his father all sorts of nice words about. Let's talk in Torah learning. Let's explore the wisdom of the Torah, whatever the Torah was at that time. But he does it in such a way which, Yitzchak gets the idea that he's a swell guy. Now, the Yitzchak, for his part, we said, is blinded. Torah says it specifically is blinded. In fact, you can find where it says he was blinded on page. on page 132, the bottom. Actually, 132 the top, 135 the top. And it came to pass, 135, and it came to pass when Isaac had become old and his eyes dimmed from seeing. Now, he has been pretty much dimmed from seeing the truth all along. He just doesn't get it. And we said part of his problem is his holiness, his intrinsic piety is so powerful, he doesn't see anyone as being evil. And that's a mistake. That's a problem. And everyone's wonderful and everybody's nice and everybody's good. And Yitzchak makes a good impression on him and so forth. But Esau made another good impression on him too. Esau, you see, was a dynamic, a very exciting and powerful personality, ready to challenge the world and change the world and make impact. Yitzchak, for his own part, felt that he wasn't that man. He said, look, my father made an impact. My father Abraham changed the world with monotheism. He taught the world, he brought the world into the sense of a recognition of God, changed the world, civilized humanity. Me, for my part, I inherited the mantle of leadership, but I'm not the extrovert my father was. I'm an introvert. I'm a holy person. I was sacrificed on the altar. I can never leave Israel. My eyes are dimmed from that experience at the altar when I was almost killed. And I mean, when he started to pray, and Rivka, who was coming to marry him, fell off a camel because she was so impressed with this aura around this man who's praying with such devotion. Yitzchak realized that about himself. He realizes that he's not the rah guy. And therefore, in a way, he wants to give over the leadership again, the third step, to someone who will be like his father. And it's not unusual that grandchildren do inherit grandparents' genes. He sees his twin boys, Yaakov and Esau, and he sees Yaakov as someone like him, quiet, sitting in the tent and studying. In fact, the Torah says when they were born, they immediately developed their characteristics. You can see it on page 127. It says over there, page 127, verse 27. See it? 127. The lads grew up. That's Yaakov and Esau. And Esau became one of those trapping, man of the field, out there in the world, making a lot of money, flipping houses, real estate, whatever, And that's the idea of the field, get out there and do stuff, right? And he was a trapper, but then Jacob was a wholesome man. Wholesome is the word. He was really very refined, not very coarse like Esau, and very, very also inward and somewhat quiet, I guess, and somewhat not making that big an impact as Esau is, and he abides in the tents. When you're in the tent, you're inside, not outside. You're not out there in the field. You're not out there in the workforce. You're not out there getting a job. You're not out there doing things. You are in the yeshiva. Now, if you ever visited a yeshiva, most of the time in the yeshiva, the guys are very, very, for the most part, quiet. They'll get really exuberant when it comes to the learning. But you won't find them out there backslapping you with the people in the street. They're not real dynamics that way. They love the learning and they're this dynamic, but they stay within the yeshiva. They don't get out into the world, so to speak. And that's Yaakov. That's his deal. Everyone's got their own deal, right? Some guys want to go to yeshiva. Some guys want to go out and make $1 million. Other guy wants to, I want to know the whole Torah. I want to know Shas. I want to learn the Daf Yomi. So that guy goes up in yeshiva. Different people. not to pass judgment on who's better or not. It's just different people doing different things. Hopefully, the guy who's doing the business is doing it honestly according to the rules of the Torah. And it's his job to give the tzedakah and to pay the money for the people in yeshiva to learn and not have to go to work. Mishnah Pirkei Avos says, whoever accepts upon himself the yoke of Torah, the yoke of our responsibility of earning a living, he's free of that. He doesn't have to do it. He doesn't have to go to the army because he's already engaged in his holy pursuit. And that's even for Yaakov and Esau. You'll also see it says over there that Isaac loved Esau for game was in his mouth. Because game was in his mouth. In other words, he hunted him with his mouth. He talked a good game to Yitzchak, trying to talking, learning, and this and that, and impressed Yitzchak. Yitzchak's impressed with Esau not only because he fakes him out, but also he's impressed with Esau because Esau is a dynamic that he's not, and he sees the lack of dynamic in the other son, Yaakov. Who says, learned all day. Hi, Abba, how you doing? I have a wonderful day. He's learning all day. And no great shakes. And this is, but Rivka loves Yaakov. Why does Rivka love Yaakov instead of Esau? She knows. You can't fake her. She didn't grow up in the house of a tzaddik. Where did she grow up? She grew up in downtown LA. She knows a gang member when she knows one, right? She knows this guy's a gangbanger. So therefore, it's clear that, but she doesn't tell him. And that's puzzling. But in a way, there's a certain time when a wife really just can't tell the husband because, as we said last week, he got discovered on his own. We said that's when the bracha went through, that's how Yaakov discovered it. Yitzchak discovered the truth. In any event, the bracha is to transfer the leadership. Yitzchak wants to give it to Esau, despite the fact that Esau very well that both Esau and Yaakov know that he sold him the birthright. He sold him the bracha with the food at the grandfather Avram's funeral. So Esau sends him. Yitzchak sends Esau out to hunt. Yeah, Rivka does a deception, and again the deception problem. Deception. So let's put it this way: in the deception, check this out. Check the bottom of 135. Jacob replied to Rebekah, his mother. 135, the bottom line. Yaakov says to Rivka, I'm not sure I want to do this. My brother Esau is hairy. My Esau is hairy, and I am smooth skinned. Perhaps my father will feel me. I'll be a mocker in his eyes, and I'll bring upon myself a curse rather than a blessing. But his mother said to him, we said this last week, your curse be on me, my son. I know what I'm doing. I'm willing to take the gamble. That's a very courageous woman. She's willing to take the curse. That's very powerful. Why is Yaakov reluctant to do his mother's bidding? What do you say? Why is Yaakov reluctant to do his mother's bidding? Straightforward. He doesn't like deception. I'm a simple yeshiva boy. Do you understand? I don't do these things. I don't lie and deceive and get into business deals and try to cheat another guy and I'm dishonest. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm a simple guy. I couldn't last 2 seconds in the street. I'm a simple guy. Rivka, for her part, is trying to tell her son, it's time, even for a quiet, mild-mannered yeshiva student, to become a little dynamic. Even you have to do it. And that's what she's going to try to tell him. And we talked about this in terms of Yitzchak discovering, it's all right, you're on time, folks, by the way. I just started a little bit early. So it's a Yitzchak. His part is we felt pretty much the deception wasn't there. Yaakov gave away enough hints and enough tidbits to let Yitzchak know his father. Dad. I'm not Esau. We talked about that. He said, "Are you Esau, my son?" And then Isaac said, "Are you Esau, my firstborn?" And he said, "I am." Right. And then he said, "What?" Esau, your firstborn. Very good. Right. So we got that idea across that there is this sense of he can't lie. He can't. He can't play games. He's not a game player. He's not. And that's just the way he is, And so Yitzchak. So Yitzchak pretty much figured out that it's Yaakov. We said last week, what we say? Father gets up Friday night to bless his children. He says, "Son number one, please come." He's holding his hands all over his son. He's saying the blessing, closes his eyes. Son's got to run to the restroom for a quick second. He runs away. In comes number two. Who gets the bracha? Number one and number two? No, number one, because that was his thought. So the idea of deceiving his father really isn't going to work, because in fact, if he speaks it's Esau, Esau got the bracha anyway. So what good is the whole ruse here? What good is the whole game playing here? Is the answer that Yaakov gives enough tidbits away, right? That Yitzchak says the voice is the voice of Yaakov, but the hands are the hands of Esau. That's what I don't figure out. But I know who you are, right? And that's what he's saying basically. So in that sense, he gives the bracha to Yaakov willingly almost. Why? Because in addition to the fact that he notes that it's Yaakov by virtue of Yaakov's refined speech, which his son Esau did not have, and there he sees the contrast clear as day. And here's a very interesting thing about learning truth, folks. Truth is always, or nearly always, discovered by contrast. You can know white if you see black. You can know black if you see white. But if you don't have that contrast, it's hard to make right. And that's the whole idea, let's say, between Shabbos and the 6 days, between light and darkness, between holy and unholy. How can you tell something's holy? Contrast it with something that's unholy, and you can tell the difference. People have no sense of sanctity or holiness or spirituality if they don't have a Shabbat in their lives, because every day's the same day. Where's the difference? You got to have differences to be able to. You got to have Havdalah in order to make Kiddush. Kiddush comes on Friday night only because you've got to have Havdalah on Saturday night. And that gives you the opening with wine and the closing with wine of Shabbat. And the idea of contrasting is really important, because that's the only time you really, really get a perspective. So Yitzchak gets the perspective that Yaakov's the right one at the moment, because he contrasts his behavior, his discussion, his speech with Esau, which was very gruff and very coarse. But there's another thing that tells Yitzchak, I want to give him my bracha and not Esau, even though I've been liking Esau the whole time. And what is that? That is the fact that I always felt Yaakov was, maybe the word nebuch. What's a nebuch? How do you say nebuch? Miskain. How do you say it? How do you say it? What? No, it's like, how do you say it in English? I can't figure it out. How do you say a miskain in English? What? A poor unfortunate, poor guy, What? And never do good. Never does good. I mean, and he always felt that Yaakov was really a real quiet, non-intrusive nobody. Yeah, you learn. Go learn. You learn. You got to learn. But all of a sudden, he realized that Yaakov is playing out his mother's deception And he's going, whoa, you can do this? Oh, you can do this? You're not afraid of this? You can get out there in the battlefield and do, and whoa, I'm impressed. So not only does he want to bless Yaakov consciously because he sees the failures of Esau, but also because he sees this new dynamic that Yaakov displays. But Yaakov displaying this dynamic is doing so, first of all, because of his mother. He wouldn't have done it on his own, I guarantee you that. Right? And he's got a right. How many people have you ever seen people that that don't even stand up for their rights? You see some pictures like that, and then they get oppressed and they get beaten up, and then people take advantage of them. I mean, you see kids bully other kids in school, for instance, right? Yaakov is like this, the potential kid that's always being bullied. I won this firstborn right, this blessing right, fair and square. I sold you the soup. I sold you the lentils. But he doesn't fight for it. His mother says, gives him a little kick in the rump and says, come on, stand up, be a man. Okay. Okay. Do this. Do a deception. A deception? Me? Titen Emet Yaakov, it says Yaakov is a man of truth. The ultimate man of truth. We're going to talk about that, by the way, also in a minute. What does it mean, truth? And you want me to lie? Yes, sir. The shame Shemayim for the sake of heaven. You got to be ready to fight for God, for Israel, for the people. You got to do what's got to be done. You got to stand up. If you want to be a leader, you can come here, free of charge. There's plenty of room. I got 1, 2, 3, 4 seats. 4 women seats available. 4 women seats. Could you imagine that? And I only got 2 women, isn't they? So, yeah, go ahead.
Yaakov incident with the whole birthright, that shows some type of
Deception in the first place.
yeah.
So we talked about that last week.
But that was on his own though.
Right, and we talked about that. But it was fair and square.
Right, but I'm saying it shows.
If I sell you fair and square, because you want to say that he put him, that Esau was in a bad way because he was starving.
It shows that he wasn't as quiet as
Correct. Okay, I'll grant you that, but I still think he wouldn't have done this on his mother. Okay. Now, where does his mother get it from?
from his brothers and
No, from the bum she came from in the first place. You understand? Anyway, what's important to understand here is that Yaakov gives him Yitzchak gives the bracha, and Yitzchak is decidedly happy with so, and Esau comes in, oh, be a bracha. All of a sudden, the big shot's crying. Want to see the big shot crying? Look at this here. It's a good one. Take a look at on page 139. 139, page verse 34 at the bottom. When Esau heard his father's words, he cried out, "Bless me, too, Father." Who needs one? Anybody? Anybody needs one here? Everyone's gone? Everyone's gone? Okay. Bless me, too, Father. All of a sudden, the big guy is cowering out on the ground. So, your father, so he responds in verse 35, your brother came with cleverness and took your blessing. What's that word cleverness mean? Your brother came with cleverness. What does it mean to be clever? You can, okay, what does it mean? It means that you don't have to be dishonest, a cheat, a liar, in order to be clever. Outsmarting someone doesn't mean you're being dishonest. It means that you are using the legitimate operative opportunities at your disposal to get done what needs to get done. And he knew from his mother he needed to get that blessing. We can't allow to have the blessing of the new leadership of the Jewish people fall into the hands of Esau. You got to do this. Our people's destiny is at stake. So, of course, he does what his mother does. And his mother's a great hero. right? But then again, the beauty of the Jewish woman behind the scenes. Go inside. Go, my son, right? Now, he does it. And of course, he wins. And Yitzchak comes around. Because as we said, Yitzchak gave the bracha to Yaakov willingly, consciously. He was aware that it was Yaakov, despite the ruse. And that's because Yaakov, you see, has this tremendous faith in Hashem. Okay, I'm gonna do some play around a little bit, but I'm gonna do it in a way that's not totally opposing my absolute commitment to truth. And that's why he leaves over a couple of these hints. I am Esau, your firstborn. Please, Father, get up. Don't say that word, please. Because what does it mean when he says please?
Yes, right, sir.
No, when he says, please, Father, get up and give me the bracha, what does he say? What does he do when he says the word please?
Revealing himself.
He revealed himself. Because Esau's not going to say please, he's too close for that. Whoa, says Yaakov, it says Yitzchak. Who's this guy? And then he says, how'd you get it so fast? And then he gives the kicker. He says, Hashem help me. Hashem? I never heard Hashem's name on Esau's lips in my life. It's just goofy here. And of course, then he gets the perspective and he knows what to do with it. But again, this is the self-discovery that he must do that Rivka cannot tell him. Okay. So now it seems that the brachas are done. We go to the bottom of page 141, and Rivka says to Yitzchak, now wife is talking to husband. Now we've got some communication going on here. And she tells him straight out, I am disgusted with my life on account of the daughters of Chet. If Jacob takes a wife, 143 of the daughters of Chet, like the daughters that are here. In other words, you could not take a daughter from a wife from here, and your father sent his servant Eliezer back to get me. I don't want my son, our son, to take a girl from here either. And he's got to go back to the old hometown. And I want to also recognize the fact that there is some goodness in the old hometown because these old hometown people produced, even in their own insanity, they produced an Avram and they produced a Rivka. So out of that can come, and we talked about the similarity. Avram is 3 years old, he recognizes his God, and Rivka is 3 years old, and she recognizes the truth of and the opportunity to go. So there lurks within that area there the potential for greatness. In any event, so they want to send him away. And so let's take a look at page 143, chapter 28, verse 1. Yitzchak summons Yaakov, blesses him again, reinforces the blessing, and instructs him, do not take a wife from here, from the Canaanite women. Let's go to Padan, go wise, go to Padan Aram, go back to Bethuel, your mother's father, take a wife from there, from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. And we're going to find out in a moment how Laban is going to take center stage. Laban, another bum. But we're going to find out he's going to take center stage too. And may Hashem bless you, and you be fruitful and numerous, and congregations of people, and for the blessings. May grant the blessings of Avram to you, to your offspring, and possess the land that eventually Hashem will given to Avram. Yitzchak send Yaakov away to Padan Aram. You are with me, and we now turn to page 145, the beginning of this week's Parashas Vayetzei. What does the Hebrew word Vayetzei mean? Vayetzei means simple. No. Go out. That's all. Somebody, I don't. Okay. Anyway, Vayetzei, right? He's going out. Where's he going? He's going from Beersheba towards Haran. See the first blessing, everybody? Tell me what's wrong with it. Tell me what's problematic about it. Tell me what's strange about the passage that says Yaakov departed from Beersheba. Now you want to cheat and look at the bottom, you can. If you don't want to cheat, choose. I mean, I'm challenging you to use your what? I'm challenging you to use your head. Tell me what? What are you saying? Yaakov departs Beersheba, goes to Haran. What's wrong with that? What do you say? You don't say nothing. Well, this guy's a very shy yeshiva boy. You don't belong in America. You belong in Israel, in yeshiva somewhere. What's wrong with it? Obviously, anybody? Vayetzei and Vayelech. Okay, what's the problem? So that sounds to you like a double. An extra word you're saying. Okay. You're on the track. If you had a choice, let's pursue it further then. You and me. If you had a choice, which word would you use? Okay, fair enough. So now you're thinking. So in other words, it simply had to say that he's going or where he's going to. Why don't I need to know where he's coming from? No, because I already know where he's living. I know he's in Beersheba. I know he's there. Simple. Say Jacob departed and went towards Haran. I need to know he's departed from Beersheba. Imagine, I said, Allison is traveling from LA to New York. Well, of course, what do you think I'm traveling from Hawaii to New York? You're in LA, you live in LA. He lives in Beersheba. What's the problem here? Okay, so good, so that's good. But yeah, we all know he's going, right? He ain't staying. His parents told him to go. But why does it tell me where he's coming from when I already know that? Okay, so go further with that. What's so special about the president of America?
He like matters in there,
He like mattered.
Matters.
Oh, okay. Okay. So Mr. Shem Halvai, I accept the bracha. Thank you very much. See you next week in Israel, Jerusalem. Everybody will zoom from Jerusalem. You're on the right track. You're thinking well. Fact of the matter is that he did matter in Beersheba. Rashi wants to say, maybe we can even read it. We can take a quick look at it and see. But let's take a look at that. Let's cheat a little bit. Go to the bottom of page 144 on the right-hand column in the English, verse 10. Allison, take it away.
Sure. Jacob departed from Beersheba for the purposes of the narrative that was considered for you and he went to Haran. Therefore, the sages infer that Jacob's departure from Beersheba has the difference of stone. The righteous person's departure from this place means void. As long as he lives in this city, he constitutes his glory. His splendor and his beauty, and he departs his glory, splendor, and each color.
Rashi. You see the beauty of Rashi? You see the genius of Rashi? If we're going to go deep into stuff, like good yeshiva children, like we all are, I'll ask you. Question was asked by Rosh Yeshiva from Tells in Cleveland. I appreciate the message. However, there's something not congruent here because with all due respect to the amount of beauty, splendor, and glory that Yaakov gave to the city that now departs with him as he departs, isn't it a fact that Yitzchak, his father, is still there? If he's still there, the beauty, splendor, and glory should still be there. Why does Yaakov's departure make such a stir when there's still a tzaddik in town? If a great tzaddik lived in our city and he left town, but another tzaddik was here instead, okay, the city still survives. The city falls apart only because he's the only tzaddik in town and out he goes. Oh, I feel that. That's painful, but Yitzchak's still there. Furthermore, to boost the question, Avraham, Yitzchak didn't do much traveling. We know that. But Avraham traveled all over the place. And every time he traveled, it doesn't say this message. Every time Avraham went to a town, he went to Mitzrayim because it was a famine. He left Mitzrayim. It doesn't say that he left Mitzrayim and all the beauty and splendor that he brought to Mitzrayim, he took away with him. But it should have. Why does it say this only by Yaakov, even though Yitzchak's still in town, and doesn't say so about Avraham at all? As if to say something special about Yaakov, that Avraham and Yitzchak don't have. So we talked about this in the past. Maybe this sounds familiar to you, but we see that Avram is the extrovert. Avram is the man of chesed. Avram is the man of kindness, impacting, changing people's lives. Yitzchak is an introvert, his own personal piety, his intrinsic holiness, his spirituality. Yaakov, we have just seen through that story of the stealing of the blessings, that he's fusing the two. Do you hear that? He's fusing the two. But let's appreciate how hard that fusion is. Most people you'll meet in your life that are generous and giving and kind are not really very strong-minded and determined. Most people that are strong-minded and determined, they're not really, they're very generous. Now, if you're on the fundraising trail like I have been all my life, trying to raise funds for tzedakah, to support my shul, to support my yeshiva, whatever it is, I go to guys, big CEOs of big companies, and I get the third degree, I get cross-examined, where does the money go, and blah, blah, blah. And then maybe give a little bit, I can push him a little bit, force him a little bit, whatever. But I go a generous guy who doesn't have a lot of that money, and he's ready, and it's a fact. Generous people are not exactly the most disciplined. Yitzchak is a disciplined man. Yitzchak is intrinsically holy and pious. He's never missed a time to pray. He's never missed a time to learn. He's never missed a time to do anything that he needs to do for God. He is disciplined. He is strong inside. Avram is a little out there in the world, generous, maybe a little flexible. Yitzchak is inflexible. Do we understand the holiness of Yitzchak? He can't leave Israel. He's inflexible. Avram's a flexible person. Avram travels to this town. I mean, could you imagine? There was this very great rabbi in a northern town of Israel called Migdal Emek. Shemata Migdal Emek? Okay. Migdal Emek is a northernmost town in Israel. Mostly Chilonim, and not religious people. And this Rav Yitzchak Grossman decided he was going to move there and try to change the town. Yitzchak Grossman walks in, you understand, with payload, with a long beard, with a long black hat, a long black suit, and a long black coat, and his seats all over the place, you understand? And they're like, "Who? This guy just came from Mars or something, you know?" And he's undaunted, like these Chabad guys, you know. The Chabad guys they'll go to the middle of anywhere, middle of nowhere, but they'll still look Chabad, won't they? They won't shave that beard. They won't take off that long coat, will they? You could tell them a mile away. And he, and just like the Chabad guys, he was even more. You know what he ended up doing? After he went to shul on Friday night, this is a true story. And he did it many times. After going to shul Friday night and coming home and eating in front of him with his family, he then picked himself up and walked out to the local nightclub. And he walked into the local nightclub on Friday night. Can you imagine this? I mean, the sight of this man walking into this Moadon, do you understand? On Friday night, the guys are going, "Whoa, look at this guy," right? Hysterical, they're laughing. He sits right down next to him. He says, "Hey boys, how we doing today? Did you know tonight's Shabbat? Did you know tonight is Holy Night? Tonight too belongs to Hashem. You want to learn about Hashem?" Whoa, that's gutsy. I tell you, I couldn't do it. But it's a lot of guts. It's a lot of guts to do that. Yitzchak can't do it. Abraham did. He didn't mind. Yaakov is the fusion between the two. Yaakov senses these two 180 degrees apart qualities, puts them together and says, "That's what the Torah really wants you to do." And then we find out that there are three great qualities of which our fathers embodied. And these three qualities are told to us by the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot as the three things upon which, who said that? Okay. Beautiful. Words, music to my heart. Okay, then tell me what they are. Come on. Give me one of them. Kindness, okay? Give me the next. Torah, avoda, Gemilas Chasodim. So Gemilas Chasodim is kindness. We just said that. What's avoda? Complete devotion, service, discipline, piety, holiness. Which is Yitzchak. And then it says the third one is called Torah. In the opposite order. Torah. What is Torah? Torah is instruction. Torah is direction. Torah is telling you what to do and when to do it and how to do it, and teaching you how to manage these two opposites and to fuse them into one personality, the Torah personality, the scholar, the Talmid Chacham. That's Yaakov. And that's why Yaakov's quintessential quality is truth, because Torah is Torah's emes. Torah is truth. You want to know what to do in a given situation? How many times have you been faced with a situation in which you say to yourself, well, on the one hand, I should do this, on the other hand, I should do that. And they're exact opposite the choices you got to make, and you're in a bind, you don't know what to do. Okay, you call it the rabbi. But let's say you can't, maybe it's Shabbat or something. You got to make a decision what to do, how to do it, what I do in this kind of case. And then you got to use this. Not your tendency to kindness, not your tendency to holiness, but your tendency to truth. What's the truth in this case? And really, this is the full Torah person. This is God's person. This is the person of all the fathers. Yaakov is the pinnacle. And when Yaakov leaves town, the whole town stirs. A great philanthropist, kindness, generous man comes to town, he makes an impact. He leaves, okay, also an impact. A holy man comes to town, a Rebbe, a Hasidic Rebbe, makes an impact. But when a Talmudic scholar comes to town, that's the biggest impact of all. And the biggest loss of all when he leaves. There's no question that it's the Torah scholar that makes the difference, to the extent where he is a more powerful, more impacting person than the spiritual and then the generous, because he fuses them together. If we understand this as a truth and it makes sense to us, we know that Hashem is this. Hashem is the Almighty, powerful. Could be an earthquake, God forbid, whatever, a pandemic. But the Almighty is also merciful, kind, generous, loving. The Almighty fuses it together. Our job is to emulate the Almighty, to walk in God's ways and to try and develop that wholesome, completely wholesome personality. And that's what Yaakov is. And Yaakov developed this through his mother's assistance. His natural tendency was to be like his father Yitzchak. His natural tendency was, I'm going to be a nice, quiet boy, sit in yeshiva. Don't bother me. I'm doing fine. I'm happy. And I got my discipline. You can't change me. I'm up every morning at the right hour, davening at the right hour, learning at the right hour. I'm on time for everything there is. I'm never late. But on the other hand, Yitzchak wants more from the next generation. And Yaakov displays it. What Yaakov really did, now watch this, is he really took his own tendency towards, let's say, holiness and discipline and spirituality, and he then took from his brother Esav, you understand, this extra dimension, this extra part of a personality that is positive, and he incorporated within himself. And that's why he was entitled to the blessing. Now, watch this. Yaakov leaves town, And we're going to skip all this. We'll come back to this. It's a very exciting thing, his trip that he's taking. But let's go and find. Let's skip to page 147, chapter 29 on the bottom. Jacob lifts his feet and goes towards the east. He finds a well in the field, and behold, 3 flocks of sheep lay there. For the well would water the flocks, but there's a stone over the mouth of the well that was large. Verse 3. All the flocks assembled. Then they would roll over the stone from the mouth of the well, water the sheep. Then they put back the stone over the mouth of the well in its place. And Jacob said to these people, to these shepherds, my brothers, where are you from? And they said, oh, we're from Haran. Oh, Haran. Oh, yeah, that's where my mother's family is. He said to them, do you know Laban? That's my mother's brother, the son of Nahor. And they said, sure, we know him. Who doesn't know Laban? Right? Then he said to them, is it well with him? And they answered, yeah, he's okay. And besides, there's his daughter, thank you, there's his daughter Rachel coming with the flock. And he said to them, look, the day is still long. It's not yet time to bring the livestock in. Let's water the flock and go on grazing. But they said, no, we are unable to. Until all the flocks have been gathered, we'll roll the stone off the mouth of the well, we'll then water the flock. The stone was a little heavy. While he was still speaking to them, Rachel arrived with her father's flock, for she was a shepherdess. Why was he a shepherdess? Because he had no sons who were shepherds. At least not at the time anyway. And it was when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the flock of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob came forward, rolled the stone off the mouth all by himself, watered the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother. Then Jacob kissed Rachel. He raised his voice and he wept. Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's relative and that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. What do we learn out of this story? Wants to make good impression on the girl. Nobody's pulled off the big rock. And watch me, guys. But what's impressing about Rachel is she's, I'm sure, a beautiful woman, but he sees that he immediately runs right into his relative, exactly the way Eliezer ran into Rivka some years ago. It's if you have this experience where you're hoping for something and it just happens. We talked about it, in the instantaneous prayer response. Eliezer makes this prayer. I'm going to look for a girl. They'll water my camels, they'll water me, and so forth, and it happens instantaneously. I mean, yeah, experience like that. You ask God, and all of a sudden, immediately, someone that's the same person you're ready to call calls you, or something. This is certainly God sent, because she is family. She is the one that my mother sent me for, to go back to her home. And then every time he says it over again, my mother's brother, right? And she runs to tell her father. Of course, she's really excited that Yaakov is here. Yaakov kisses her. A little forward, pretty quick there, and wait a few seconds, get to know the girl. But it seems that he already felt and understood this was God sent. This is my destiny. She's my shidduch. She's the one. And he weeps. Why does he weep? So we may have maybe why would you weep if you just met the girl of your dreams? He wasn't. I mean, you want to say it's weeping out of happiness? I mean, maybe. Right? Let's take a look at 149, the bottom, number 11, the left-hand column on the bottom. He weeps. What does it say? He sees in the future that Rachel, his beloved, will not be buried with him in the cave of Machpelah. And we all know that that's true. I mean, at the end, Rachel did die and was buried separately. died at a young age, in childbirth, in fact. But we're going to learn about this Rachel, a life of such selflessness and such self-effacing, a life of such um, total, not for herself. It's beyond heroic to describe. Who does Rachel become? She becomes Mama Rachel. Rachel Imenu. Rachel, our patriarch. And not to belittle the other patriarchs, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, beautiful women, wonderful women, God-fearing women. But Rachel stands out. And where all the couples, matriarchs and patriarchs, are buried in Machpelah, everyone knows the 6 in Machpelah, right? I'll say the man, you tell me the woman. Abraham, Sarah, Yitzchak, Rivka, Yaakov, Leah. But there really are, just for your information, it's digressing a little bit, there really are 8 couples in Machpelah. Anybody know the other name of the other couple? Adam and Eve, that's right. Adam and Chava. And so we have this, Rachel is set apart. And she's buried alone on the road. The future will bring, and maybe I guess I'll just tell you the future, that they jump ahead to the end of the movie. But just the future will bring is that Rachel was buried alone, just on the outskirts of Yerushalayim. And 2,000 years ago, when the Jewish people were exiled from their land by the Romans, the Jews would pass by Kever Rachel, by Rachel's tomb, in captivity as they are being let out of Israel and Jerusalem. And Mama Rachel starts to cry. And the tears of Mama Rachel are the purest tears you can imagine. She's crying for her children. Rachel Mavakal Banel. She's crying for them. What only a mother can do. What only a woman can do. She begs Hashem, bring my children back home. Hashem says to her, Mini kolech bibechi. Stop crying. I will promise you that in your marriage, not Avram's, not Yitzchak, not Yaakov, not Sarah, not Rachel, not Leah, but in your marriage, that's Sarah, Rivka, and Leah, but in your marriage, Rachel, the children will come back home. There will be a return to Israel by the Jewish people because of you. Because of your self-sacrifice in your life. You have the power to convey the blessing. You have the power to guarantee Jewish destiny and the Jewish future. And so Rachel, for her part, it's interesting that in 1948, when Israel achieved its independence, the United Nations cut Jerusalem in half. They cut Jerusalem in half, and the United Nations wasn't even going to give Jerusalem to Israel at all. You want to think about that? It's a craziness. But they took away from us in the Western Wall. They took away from us the access to Machpelah, to the cave of the patriarchs, and they took away from us the Kever Rachel. And they had promised to the UN that they would give us access to pray in our holy places, and never did. Not that I'm surprised. In 1967, the Arabs wanted a little more than what they already got. They wanted all of Jerusalem. They wanted all of Israel, for that matter. So the Israeli forces fought back and won a miraculous victory. And the Milchemet Shesh Yamim, 6-day war, we won in 6 days. 3 million Jews beat 70 million Arabs in 6 days. Now, I was there at the time, and I said to myself, well, I may not have seen the earlier miracles. I may not have seen the splitting of the sea. I'm not that old, by the way. I may not have seen the splitting of the sea, but I saw the 6-day war. And that's something. That's an amazing miracle of the return of the Western Wall to us, and the return of, because then they sued for peace. Let's make peace. Please give us back the land. We're sorry we made war with you. You know how Arabs can be. But what's interesting is that during the 19-year occupation between 1948 and 1967, I was there at the time. I got to Israel 64. In 1964, during those 19 years of occupation, the Jews were never allowed to go to holy sites. And the great Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, the great Mirror Rosh Hashiva, approached the government officials and said, look, if you're going to negotiate, now obviously we're negotiating from a position of weakness because the Arabs are much more numerous than us. Let's not negotiate for the wall. I can do without the Western Wall. I want Kever Rachel instead. Why Kever Rachel more than the Western Wall? The answer is very simple. When Rachel passed away and her spot was buried, and the Torah will teach us that Yaakov buried her there at that spot, what really happened was that it became a place of prayer for all time in terms of Rachel's ability to intercede on our behalf as she cried for the people when they were leaving. And Hashem promised her that the people would come back to Israel, her children and great-grandchildren and so forth. The Western Wall, part of the temple in Jerusalem, wasn't built till centuries later when we finally built the temple under King David and King Solomon. And so, therefore, Rachel Imenu has been our place of prayer and hope, communally as a people and individually as individuals, ever since. The power of prayer at Kever Rachel cannot be underestimated. You can't. You can't imagine or overestimate it. You can't imagine what it means to stand at the Kever of Rachel Imenu and to pour out your heart with your troubles and your pains and your sufferings and your issues. And I want to get married. I can't find the right person. I want to have a baby. I can't get pregnant. The children are not going in the right path. Rachel Imenu, intercede with Hashem. That is the place for prayer. Now, they never responded to it, to the negotiation, but in fact, we won it anyway 19 years later. This is who Rachel Imenu is. But let's go further and find out who she really is. She did not die together with her husband and buried in the same spot, and he wept for that because she is his destiny. She is the woman of his life. And if we look at destiny, particularly in the shape of, or the form of, who's my bashert? What's the word bashert mean? No, bashert means in Yiddish, my destiny, right? That's what it means. Who am I destined to be with? So this sense of that is something that Rachel, that Yaakov senses right away. And yet, it will not be that she would be with him in the burial. And so he weeps, he loves her. And of course, Laban, at the bottom of the page 149, finds out, hey, Jacob is here. Hey, his sister's son. And he runs towards him, and he embraces him, and he kisses him, and he takes him into the house. And then, of course, he tells Laban all the events that have occurred to him. Turn to page 151, and Laban says to him, well, nevertheless, you're my flesh and blood. And they stay with him for a month. Who can tell me the contrast, almost the conflict between his first reaction, 13, and his second reaction in verse 14? You see a difference? What one word tells you there's a difference? One word only. You're right. Nevertheless, I embrace you. I kiss you. Well, nevertheless, you're my flesh and blood. I don't get it. Do you see the difference here? right? So what's the Torah teaching us? The thing that occurred where his attitude changed, where he got soured, was in the middle. Let's take a look at it again. He embraces him, he kisses him, takes him to the house, and then semicolon after that, who's he? Yaakov. Yaakov recounts to Lavan all his events. And all of a sudden, once he hears the story, then his attitude changes. Now, to understand this, this turn of events, Lavan, back in 13 on 149, is very happy with the news of his sister's son visiting, and he runs towards him. And in running towards him, why do you think Lavan is running? Well, you don't know Lavan yet. Who's Lavan? Well, Lavan is a guy who was present at the time when Eliezer had come years back to solicit Rivka to marry Yitzchak. What in that encounter impressed Lavan the most about Eliezer?
His money.
He saw that Rivka, his sister, came in from Eliezer with bracelets and the rings and the necklaces and earrings and nose rings, and whoa, what she's wearing is worth $1 million. You understand? What else you got? He's a money hungry, selfish, greedy, and we get these kind of personalities in the Torah. We get these extreme opposites, We got this real gracious guy, and this real generous person, and this real bum, and it's beautiful to see. So watch the contrast. I said earlier, watch the contrast. This guy cares about nothing but money. He's expecting big time. He says to himself, wait a second. Last time someone came to visit, it wasn't Yitzchak himself that came for a wife, it was his servant. And he had all these jewels and camels and goats and donkeys and horses or whatever. Now himself coming, Yaakov, not his servant. Who knows what he's got? So he runs out and he embraces him. Now watch this embrace. Where is over here? We hide him. And he kisses him. Where's all of it? Where's all of it? It's got to be in there somewhere. Where is it? And he says to him, I got to tell you, I had it and I lost it. You lost it? How'd you lose it? And he says, well, my parents did give me a lot of stuff to come and I should make a good impression on the girl and the girl's family. I shouldn't look like a pauper, But my brother, Esau, he doesn't like me anymore because he considers me the thief. I stole his brachas, And he dispatched his grandson or son, maybe grandson, named son. He dispatched his son Eliphaz. And he told Eliphaz, catch up with your uncle Yaakov and kill him. Now, Eliphaz does dutifully what his father says. After all, since he watched his father honor his father, albeit in a deceitful way, but he did. He showed him good father. That Esau the rabbis say in the Talmud, you want to learn how to honor your father properly according to the Torah? Learn from Esau. The bum. Yeah. Everybody's got something you can learn from. Everybody. Even Lover, we're going to learn about next week. So Esau would put on his Shabbos clothing to greet his father. I don't think I may have greeted my father of blessed memory in church leaves. I may have. But I certainly would not be in a sports athletic outfit when I was greeting my father. I can guarantee you that. It's your father, it's your mother. You dress up. passage, in the very same pasuk? The answer is to tell you that Shabbat overrides honoring parents. If your father or mother, chas v'shalom, tell you you should not honor the Shabbat, you're not allowed to listen to them because the honor of God is superior. Which teaches you that if your father tells you to kill somebody, you should not listen. Okay? But Eliphaz is a dummy, right? He's a monkey see, monkey do. Whatever you tell him. Okay? So he goes ahead and he catches up with Yaakov and says, I gotta kill you. But Yaakov says, how can you do that? I'm your uncle. And besides, remember back when we had this personal relationship, you and I, uncle and nephew, we were learning together. I was teaching you Torah. You loved it so much. We have a relationship. How can you do this now? I don't know. What can I do, uncle? My father told me to kill you. What can I do, uncle? So Yaakov is a Talmudic scholar. He's a genius. He knows the teachings. And he says, according to the teachings of the Talmud, which wasn't in existence at the time, but will be in the future, I can predict in the future that the Talmud will say a very interesting thing. It will say that if a person is poor and dependent upon others, that person is considered dead. That's a Gemara. Ani nechshav kemet. That's what it says. And it really, if you think about it, it really is such a sad thing. If a person's that desperate, has to come on to knock on doors and to ask for stuff and stuff. It's a very painful, embarrassing situation to ask for that kind of help. And frankly, he says to Eliphaz, I have an idea. Take my money. I become poor. Poor is like a dead man. And you did what your father wanted you to do. So the dummy, Eliphaz, who's outsmarted by the scholar Yaakov, takes the money and goes away. Meantime, he comes to Rachel and to Lavan, penniless, without a dime. And he tells him that. Well, he says, Lavan, I was hoping, I was anticipating, nevertheless, my flesh and blood, what am I going to do? But you see the beauty of these stories. See the beauty of where do we get these stories from? From these implications. And before we go home tonight, we're going to do a big math lesson, bigger than you ever did in college. Watch this. But in the meantime, you ready for math? No, you're not good at math? You're a genius in math. Okay, the other one's going to do it for the class. You stepped into that one. Okay, so Laban tells 151, verse 15. Okay, Laban talked to Jacob and says, look here, you're my relative. Should you serve me for nothing? You're going to stay here and work? Tell me what are your wages? I'll pay. I mean, after all, I can't take complete advantage of you. Says Laban has two daughters. Laban has two daughters. The name of the older one is Leah, and the name of the younger one is Rachel. Leah's eyes were tender. Rachel was beautiful. What do you mean eyes were tender? Well, if Rachel was beautiful and Leah's eyes were tender, what did they say about Leah's beauty? She wasn't so beautiful. She was, she wasn't that, she wasn't Miss America, you know what I mean? Right? Anyway, she's beautiful. She's got the tender eyes. Tender eyes means, frankly, that there was a lot of crying. She was, you know that, right? Did you know that she was crying a lot? Now you know. She was crying a lot. But Yaakov loved Rachel. Now he didn't love Rachel because she was more beautiful. He felt that Rachel was his destiny. Just so happened it's a good plus that she's beautiful. Okay, and he said, "I'll work for 7 years for Rachel." Laban said, well, okay, I'll agree to that. Better than give it to you than to somebody else. So Yaakov worked for 7 years, and they seemed like a few days. When you're in love with someone, and you really want someone, or something for that matter, the amount of time that it takes doesn't seem that long at all, because the goal is imminent. The goal is a few days, a few months, a few years away. It's okay, because I know that it's there. and I'm working for 7 years. I feel like it's almost tomorrow we're going to get married. Okay. So Yaakov says to Lavan, deliver my wife, verse 21. Stand and deliver. My term is full, and I want to be with her. So Lavan gathered all the people to make it a feast. It's a wedding. And it was in the evening, and he took Leah instead, and he slept with her. Wait a second. What does that say? In 23? Am I reading correctly? He took the wrong girl and slept with the wrong girl. It must have been a dark night, and there was no electricity, and there was no stars or moon. It must. How can he do this? Do you drink? No, you don't drink it. You get married. No, you don't. You don't do that. Go ahead and do that. That's why they make all those kind of mistakes. Jews don't drink. Okay. I mean, you do drink. There's Purim, there's Simchas Torah, right? Not at a wedding. So Lavan gives us Zilpah, the maidservant. We'll see what she serves in just a moment. And verse 25, the bottom of the page, getting exciting. It was in the morning, and whoa, it's you with the tender eyes. Good. So, but he hasn't complained to her at all. Who's he complained to? To Lavan. Hey, you tricked me. I work for Rachel. Why'd you deceive me? So let's understand the background. We're talking about a deception. We're talking about a dishonesty. We're talking about a thievery. We're talking about nearly the same event that Yaakov himself had experienced with his father in taking the place. Is this not a repeat? Is this not like happening again? Right? I mean, the lightning strikes twice. Is this not a repeat of I mean, Yaakov, you once you did it, now you're the victim of it. What's the difference? And Yaakov thinks himself about that now. That's true. You see, in order to be able to understand how this happened, you have to believe and understand that Yaakov is not a dummy. Even though he was a dummy the night before, but in the morning, he's not a dummy. He knows something's on here. He knows something's goofy here. But he also knows that Hashem pays you measure for measure. What does that mean, measure for measure? That means if you have a toothache, you must have been speaking Lashon Hara. It means that if something's going wrong with this relationship, maybe you should look into yourself. Now, the idea is that whenever something occurs, wherever Hashem steps in and either punishes or rewards, you can figure it out. God's easy to understand, real easy. You did this, that's why this happened. You did that, that's why that happened. And the responsivity or the connection between what happened to what the consequences were is obvious to the naked eye. Use your head. And this is so much important lessons for all of us on personal levels, folks. The idea of learning this parasha, to try and implement and apply this to our personal lives. Person maybe forgot to make a bracha, starts to drink. Oh, he starts choking. You get it. So Yaakov sees the correlation, and he sees, well, I deceived. I was deceived. So he's angry, of course, and not necessarily at Leah either, because she's been manipulated. She was pushed into that chuppah by her father, right? But he has to understand. Yaakov has to understand his role in this. I know Lavan's role. He's a bum. He's a bad guy. He lies. He's a thief. I know that Leah is an innocent bystander. But what about me in this story? What about me? What role do I play here? I play a big role. You know what role I'm playing? I'm playing a role of saying that if this happened to me and I don't understand what I did wrong, then what should I be doing? Figuring out what I did wrong. Figuring out, did I really do wrong with my father? But my father justified it. It was okay to steal the bracha. It was appropriate to steal the bracha. It was the right thing to do because they said I was the bad guy. But I'm still correlating the events. It's too uncanny. It's too obvious not to correlate. But what we learn also, you see, is that sometimes people do things wrong for the right reason. You remember the story of Lot's daughters sleeping with their father. Why? Because they felt they were doing a heroic act of bringing people to the world. Everyone's dead. No one's around. They didn't know. Because there's foolishness on their part. But the point is that they were doing an ugly thing for a right cause. You go to war. You kill people for the right cause. But there is a negative effect upon you because of it. And as a result of that, it changes you. It affects you. It hurts your sensitivities. It changes you in some manner. What Yaakov did, he had to do. But it changed him. He became a little less refined, a little less respectful, a little less of a yeshiva student, because he had to do what he had to do. And it does affect you. And so he says, I guess I had this common to me because I did something justifiably, but wrong. And so then when he realizes that, he says, if that's true, maybe this is coming to me so that I get that understanding. And I don't go around justifying myself completely. You understand? I do realize in some manner or another that I had to do what I had to do, but I got to try to get rid of the after effects of it. King David fights many wars for the Jewish people. Every one of them for the sake of heaven. Every one of them for the defense of our people. God comes and says, you want to build a temple? You want to build a base of Mikdash? You can't do it. Because your hands are bloodstained. You can't do it. Your son, Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, man of Shlomo, of Shalom, he will build the temple. He hasn't fought wars. And there's kind of that of effect upon us. And we just have to live with that, be recognizing of that. I mean, Rivka, she didn't have an effect upon her first 3 years in life when she lived with those horrible people, her brother Lavan, who ran after money, and her father Besuel, and she lived in this horrible situation. It affected her. It affected her enough to know that her son Esav was no good. But it affects you in the sense that that it touches your personality. And it may even come out of it once in a while. And in so doing, you got to be conscious of it. And being conscious of it, it helps you to become better and overcome it. And this is a great lesson for Yaakov to remember his initial and original commitment to truth. Okay, I understand. Lavan's a bum. Leah's innocent. And I needed to go through this. I needed to go through it. I needed to have this happen to me so that I understand. If that's so, we now turn the page and we say, Lavan said, well, I got a reason why I gave you the first one first, because in our place, the custom is that the older sister's got to marry first. Complete the week of this one, and we'll give the other one too, for the work which you will perform for me yet another 7 years. How long did Yaakov work for Leah? 7 years. How long did Yaakov work for Rachel? When Yaakov worked for Leah, did he work first and then get married? Is that right? Right? When Yaakov worked for Rachel for 7 years, did he get married first or did he work first? He worked first. You want to say they did the same thing, right? And the Torah says not that way. Torah says, take a look at it. Complete the week of this one. A week is how many days, folks? And they say 7 in Hebrew. Sheva. 7 days, 7 years. When he first worked those 7 years, it felt like 7 days anyway. He only waited 1 week. And then he said to Laban the following. Now look, you deceived me once. You ain't gonna fool me a second time. And pull off another trick like this. You want me to work another 7 years? For her sister, for Leah's sister, for Rachel, the one I'm destined for? I'll do it. But I get married first. You ain't gonna pull the wool over my eyes. Which means to say what? That, yes, I deserve this deception. But now I have to use the strength of my wisdom and my cleverness that I had, that I developed through my mother to outsmart the bum. Don't out-cheat him, outsmart him. So now you outsmart the guy. But why do you wait a week?
Because you have to wait 7 days for the first marriage.
Why?
The Sheva.
Sheva Brachas, right? Which teaches you never are allowed to intersperse one simcha with the other. You're not allowed to combine simchas. Why? Because each simcha deserves its own focus. Are you allowed to get married on holidays, on Yom Tov, Sukkot, Pesach? No, why not? Because Sukkot and Pesach is a Yom Tov. It's a joyous occasion. You can't intersperse joyousness and joyousness. This is a joy of a wedding. This is a joy of a holiday. It can't be together. You can't get married on a holiday. Joy has to be its own intrinsic. You have to give each time its own deserving time. You can't intersperse. You can't combine or commingle. Can't do that. With Simcha, it deserves focus. This is your focus. This is it. I married Leah incorrectly. Well, if it's incorrect, what do you think I should do? What do you think I should do? I married the wrong girl. What should I do? You try to make it? No one ever considered divorce? Getting rid of her? No? Well, he wants Rachel. He got the wrong girl. Well, maybe he'll just directly battle the guy. He's a bum anyway. I mean, listen, I got the wrong girl. Listen, my dear, you're a wonderful person, but not for me. Sorry, nothing personal. I'm nothing personal. Some wonderful man is going to make you happy in your life, not me. What's wrong with him saying that? What's wrong with Yaakov saying that? Wouldn't you think he would do that? Wouldn't anybody else do that? Okay, that's the one I want. So now he doesn't. In fact, not only does he not do that to her, but he's going to marry her sister instead. I don't know, how does that work out? I don't know. But I mean, they'll probably be clawing at each other's throats over this guy. But in addition, he's not going to marry the Rachel until 1 week passes, so they can spend the 1 week of Sheva Brachas of fully giving his wife the full joy that she deserves. You're my wife 100%. I didn't intend to marry you, but I did. And Yaakov, for his part, of course, is a holy man. He's never been with a woman before in his life. And having not been with a woman, I mean, how did he end up not knowing her? It was a dark night. There was no electricity. He didn't see her. He didn't see the eyes. So what we learn from here, listen, what?
What about this man?
What up?
Smell.
Maybe it smells alike. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there. I don't know.
No conversation, rather?
Oh, someone's thinking conversation. Two people who love each other very much have some sort of private jokes between each other, right? And they, you warm? Oh, I beg your pardon. Excuse me. We wouldn't want you to, what do you call it? We wouldn't want you to sweat out here, would we? No, sir. We're not gonna let you sweat. No, sir, me. We're gonna take good care of you. Though it is, oh, it is heavy. It is, yeah. It's, how do we do this? Come back here. Okay, this should go on hopefully in just a moment. And this should blow right in your face. Not person. Lovers share personal things that only the two of them understand. Certain words that mean something to the two of them that no one else can ever know and no one else is privy to. That's a beautiful part of the relationship. Rachel, listen to Rachel. She took everything that she shared with Yaakov and gave it over to Leah and told her, this, when he says this, you say that. And when he says this, you laugh. And when he says this, react this way. She gave her everything in order so that she shouldn't be embarrassed. When was the last time you heard of someone giving up their future, their destiny, their husband, their love, so that your sister shouldn't be embarrassed? Do we understand who this lady is? Do we understand the enormity of this personality? This is the sense of heroism that Rachel Imenu remains to us forever and ever. That being the case, of course he didn't know it was Rachel, it was Leah. She sounded like Rachel, just like he sounded like Yaakov, Yitzchak, right? He thought it was Rachel. Comes out, he wakes up in the morning, oh my God, that's wrong, right? But he doesn't shame her, he doesn't embarrass her, because if she knew that stuff, there's no way she knew it except from Rachel. That means that Rachel agreed to this. If Rachel doesn't want to embarrass her sister, I'm not going to let you. But wait a second, I just had relations with her. Well, that means what? That means we're married. That means we're married. But wait a second, what about my destiny? I'll work another 7 years. But I got to give my sweetheart her 7 days. And we celebrate every night a party, share burgers, right? Okay, we're all done. New wedding, because you ain't outsmarting me this time. This time you're going to trust me, because maybe I won't work the full 7 years for you and nothing you can do about it, because I got the girl already. So he marries Rachel, and he works the full 7 years without the slightest bit of weakness, because he maintains his reputation and his self-respect as an honest man. You fake me, you won't fake me again, but I'm not faking you. You get it? I'm not going to compromise my integrity because of you. And look what it says. It says over here, top of the page 153, verse 26, Lavan says, blah, 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 28, right? Yaakov completed a week, and then he gave him Rachel as a wife. Right then and there after the week. And then he worked for 7 years. Now, how do you marry two wives? Is the answer. Remember when I went into Yitzchak and had to use this subterfuge and this fake, and I appeared like Esau when I really was Yaakov, right? And even though I gave up enough hints to tell you that I am Yaakov, but nevertheless, I did involve myself in a deceitful manner, which we said earlier does affect you in the very end, right? But what it was history saving, because what did it do? It gave the right man the next power of leadership. Who's the right man? The right man is not a reflection of Yitzchak. nor a reflection of Yaakov, of Avram, but a reflection of the both. As we said, fuse these two anti how do I say it? Give me the word. Opposing qualities, put them together, become generous and powerful at the same time. Well, that means I got to become a Yaakov and an Esau, which means since Leah and Rachel were the daughters of Laban, and Laban's sister is Rivka, and she has two sons, and her brother has two daughters. That means that the oldest daughter is destined to marry the older son, and the younger daughter is destined to marry the younger son, which means that Leah is supposed to marry Esau, and Rachel is supposed to marry Yaakov, as we said the destiny was. So it comes out that Esau should have been the fourth father. And just like there's four mothers, there should have been four fathers. But Esau blew it. So Yaakov had to adopt a little bit of Esau inside him to be the full person that would move forward with the two wives. He has Esau and Yaakov together. He marries Leah and Rachel together. But why did Leah have those tender eyes in the first place? She was crying. Why was she crying? Because she saw in prophecy that she's supposed to end up at home. Esau. Who wouldn't cry for that? Of course she's crying. But then Yaakov realized, you must be a special lady too. You're crying because you don't want to end up with that guy Esau. You're a very special person too. I need to marry you too. And that's why destiny would send Yaakov into a deceitful situation in order for him to move forward the destiny of Am Yisrael. And the destiny is both Yaakov and Esau embodied in Yaakov marries Rachel and Leah together. Now, the Parashas will go on with the birth of the tribes. You should look at it during the weekend over Shabbos and learn the names of the 12 tribes. And I think it's maybe noteworthy. Maybe we'll try it maybe next week to tell us a little bit about who these tribes were. But Yaakov will build his family. What's interesting in building his family is that Leah will have 6 children, which is kind of strange because since each one had a handmaiden, right? There really are 4 wives that Yaakov will marry. Right? He'll marry 2 wives and 2 what do they call them? Handmaidens, maidservants. And theoretically, if you take the destiny of 12 and you divide it by 4 women, how much should each woman have? 3. And Rachel and Leah has 6. Leah has 6. So obviously she becomes the premier wife. She has 6 children. The other handmaidens have 2 each, a total of 10. And Rachel is barren. Our hero, our heroine, our beloved, our beautiful Rachel. The one that Yaakov falls in love with, the one that Yaakov sees his destiny in, the one that he weeps for, the one that is buried separately to be the standard bearer for the Jewish people in the future. She has no children. And the life of sacrifice and the life of selflessness and the life of giving and the life of having nothing for yourself continues, embodied in this unique woman. We will learn probably next week that she will have one child who will become the premier of all the tribes. And who will that child be? Joseph, correct. And he will become the premier of all the tribes. And we'll talk about that and how the tribes interact and so forth in the weeks to come. However, she will have a second child, Benjamin. She will die in childbirth at a young age and be buried on the road, alone, away from the rest of the matriarchs and patriarchs. And when you think about this, and I mean, I maybe telling the story over 100 times to go through the years, and it never fails to affect me. this woman affects him. This special person. When I go to Israel, and this is the month. I mean, last month I should say, not this month. This month's Kislev. Last month was Cheshvan. The 11th of Cheshvan is the yard site of Rachel Imenu, and Israelis go like crazy there. The place must be packed with thousands of people on the 11th Cheshvan. They notice of it in America, but just to go to the cave of Rachel, to the tomb of Rachel, and to be there and to say a prayer there and whatever, I think would probably be the height of my visit there as well, because I so much identify and heroically worship who this lady is. We have to also realize that Yaakov does have a battle on his hands with his uncle / father-in-law, who will cheat him every step of the way, and he will continue to cheat him throughout the parsha, monetarily particularly. And Yaakov will not go down in the mud with this guy. He will not give up his integrity or his truth or his honesty. He's an honest man. That's what his life is, and that's what the Torah teaches. Torah's emes, Torah's truth, Torah's honesty, Torah's straightforward. No fooling around, no flexibility. It's straightforward. And Yaakov will live with that despite the challenges that come from dealing in business with a guy who's cheating you.
Rabbi,
Yes, sir.
in the Chavetz Chaim's concise book of mitzvahs,
Correct.
there are two references to that, in fact, of Yaakov, with one that should not take revenge,
Okay.
and
He certainly could have taken revenge on
yeah,
and the other.
in business, even when
Right.
you're dealt dishonest.
Correct. Absolutely. And that's Yaakov, our hero in this particular case, in this particular story. We will just learn one more thing. And this is where you gotta do your math. Ready? Okay. If you will kindly turn to page, to the very end of the book of Parashas, Yaakov is about to die. And you will find it on page 200 let's see what it is over here, 268, 269. This is the end of Yaakov's life. We're jumping ahead now. He just got married, he's having kids, and we're jumping ahead to his death. And let me tell you why. Because we're going to work backwards in the math. So if you need a pen, use it. If you want to use a calculator, you can use that too. If you want to use your head, right? Jacob lived in the land of Egypt. He got down to Egypt because the sun was there. I want to tell you the whole story, so leave it alone. 17 years. And how long did he live? 147. Is that correct? Okay, that's enough of that. Yaakov got to Mitzrayim at 130, right?
How old was that when she passed?
33. Now, Yaakov is 130 when he gets to Mitzrayim. He'll spend the last 17 years of his life with his children who have already moved to Egypt, and particularly his name, and particularly his son Yosef. Okay. Now, if Yosef Yosef himself was one second. Yaakov is 130 when he gets to Mitzrayim. In order for you to understand this, Yosef, his choice, the most beloved son, the tribe, was 17 when he left Israel, and 22 and 39 when he eventually appeared unto Pharaoh. So those were another 17 years. What is that?
type issues.
Where is it?
Although
Oh, 22:17, 17. No. No. Yosef was 17 years old. Sorry. Yosef was in Mitzrayim. He was 39 when he was in Mitzrayim. So it says he appeared in front of power of 30. He predicted a famine of 7 years, 2 good years, 7 years passed, 2 famine years, 7 and 2 is 9, 30 plus 9 is 39. So he was 39 when his father came to see him. And his father was 130. So do the math. If he was 39 when he reunited with his father, who was 130, how old was Yaakov the father when Yosef was first born in the first place? Remember now, I'm 130 and you're 39. You're my child, okay? I'm 130, you're 39. How old was I when you were born? 91, okay. That means that when Yaakov married Leah, she started having children right away. When he married Rachel, she wasn't having children, as we said. In fact, we're taught that he was when Yosef was born to the first child of Rachel 14 years after this event, because he spent 7 years working for Leah, and then another 7 years working for Rachel. During these 14 years, okay, first 7 years he wasn't married to anybody, second 7 years he's married to both of them, but during these 14 years, okay, Rachel had no children. So Rachel's first child, Yosef, was born when Yaakov was 91. So that means this event took place 14 years before 91, which means when did this event take place? 77. So we're all in agreement that Yaakov pursues his destiny and his future at the age of 77, going to Laban's house, marrying his 2 wives, and starting to have his family, and then eventually his future is mapped out. 77 is the key number to remember. The problem with this 77 is that how old was Yaakov when he left Beersheba? Now, we talked about this. He left, he went, right? So we said that his leaving made a big stir, correct? And then, of course, his arrival was in Haran. Problem is that his departure from Beersheba, we could ascertain at the age of 63. And we just ascertained his arrival in Haran to marry the 2 wives at 77. And that's a 14-year discrepancy, which the Talmud deals with extensively. It's an extreme difficulty. How do we understand these 14 years? How do we know that Yaakov left town at 63? How do we know that he got the bracha at 63 and then he had to go away? And then he eventually arrived at 77. How do we know? We know he arrived at 77. That we know. He worked 7 years till 84, married the 2 wives. Yosef was born 7 years later, 91. We all know that. But what we don't know is what he did for 14 years when he left at 63. And we know he left at 63 because we know that Yitzchak was 60 years old when he had his twins. And we know that Yitzchak told his son, I want to give you a bracha because I'm close to death. Why was he so sure he was close to death? Because every man is always supposed to take within his life a calculation that his death could be imminent within 5 years of his parents passing. Now we all know that Sarah, his mother, Yitzchak's mother, Sarah, passed away at 127. We learned that nearly 2 weeks ago. She died at 127. Therefore, Yitzchak is now 123. And that's what he gets worried about, the fact that he might die. And therefore he's got to bless his kids. If he's 123 and he gave birth to Yitzchak, he gave birth to Yaakov at 60, how old is Yaakov now? If he gave birth to his son Yitzchak, if he gave birth to his son Yaakov at 60, he gave birth to Yaakov at 60. And now he's 123, fearful of his death within 5 years of his mother's passing, 127. How old is Yaakov?
63.
63. We'll go over this next week. It's a little. All right, I'll try to put it down on paper. In any event, there is a 14-year discrepancy. What? That's your answer. Yaakov went to learn at the yeshiva. And that's the way you prepare to meet the outside world. And having spent 63 years in the isolation of his father's tent, and 63 years in yeshiva, and 63 years of pure Jewish training, he's got to go out and meet the world. And he's not ready yet. He needs more Torah into 14 years of yeshiva to be able to prepare to maintain himself and have the integrity not to fall apart under the influence of evil. And that's what those 14 years are. We'll do this mathematical calculation again next week. But the fact is that the way to prepare for a job, the way to prepare to get married, go to learn for 14 years. You think I'm joking? All right, I did 4 years. Everyone have a great